In a small village nestled between lush green hills and a sparkling river, lived a young man named Kofi. He was a humble farmer who spent his days working in the fields and his nights gazing at the stars, dreaming of a future. His heart belonged to Abina, the beautiful and kind daughter of the village elder. Abina, with her gentle spirit, had always been Kofi's quiet fascination, and he admired her from afar, too shy to approach her directly. The villagers often spoke of their connection, though neither Kofi nor Abina had ever spoken of their feelings aloud. They had exchanged glances across the marketplace, shared smiles during the harvest celebrations, and even walked side by side during community events. But neither had dared to speak the words that filled their hearts. Kofi's love for Abina was pure, but it was complicated by the unspoken rules of their society. His family was not as wealthy or influential as hers, and their love was frowned upon by many. Yet, the spark in Kofi's heart refused to die. Kofi decided to pour his heart out to Abina in a letter. He knew it was the only way to express his love, as he had always been too shy to do so face to face. With trembling hands, Kofi wrote the letter under the dim glow of a lantern, his words filled with longing and sincerity. Abina, the stars above us are not as bright as the way you light up my life. I have loved you from the moment I saw you, but fear has always kept me silent. I ask for nothing but to know if you feel the same. If I am not worthy of your love, I will understand. But I can no longer live with this weight in my heart. Please, if you can, meet me by the river at dusk and give me a chance to show you my feelings. Yours, Kofi. The letter was folded carefully and sealed with wax, a personal touch to signify the gravity of his emotions. Kofi entrusted his best friend, Kwame, to deliver it to Abina. His heart pounded in his chest as he waited for news. Days passed, and the sun rose and set. Kofi waited anxiously for Abina's response, constantly checking the path to her house, hoping to see her coming towards him. But days turned into weeks, and there was no sign of Abina or the reply he so desperately hoped for. Kofi's heart sank with every passing moment. Had she received the letter? Had she read his words? Was his love not enough to reach her heart? He grew restless and anxious, his mind filled with questions that no one could answer. Kwame, his best friend, could offer no reassurance, and the silence between them only deepened the uncertainty in Kofi's heart. Abina, meanwhile, had received Kofi's letter, but her father, the village elder, had intercepted it before she could see it. The elder, a stern and proud man, had his own plans for Abina's future. He had already promised her to another man, a wealthy merchant who had long sought her hand. This man, though kind, was not the one Abina loved, but her father's word was law. Abina had wanted to meet Kofi by the river, to tell him that she had also loved him from afar, but she could not defy her father. She had no choice but to keep her feelings hidden, even if it meant breaking Kofi's heart. Every day, she suffered in silence, torn between duty to her family and the love she could never have. The elder, believing that Abina's emotions were a passing phase, kept her busy with preparations for her wedding to the merchant. The days grew heavy for Abina as she kept her feelings for Kofi locked away inside, her heart aching with each passing day. The day of the wedding arrived, and the village was abuzz with preparations. The air was filled with the sound of drums, laughter, and songs. The elders and villagers gathered at the grand tent set up for the ceremony. The merchant arrived, dressed in his finest attire, and Abina stood beside her father, a smile on her face that did not reach her eyes. Kofi, unaware of the wedding preparations, walked to the riverbank where he and Abina had once shared quiet moments, hoping against hope that she would show up. As the sun began to set, he waited, his heart heavy with longing and despair. But Abina never came. He waited until the stars appeared in the sky, but there was no sign of her. As the night grew colder, Kofi stood up and walked home, his heart broken in ways he had never imagined. The wedding ceremony was a grand affair, but inside, Abina's heart was shattered. She could not bring herself to look at her future husband, nor could she look at her father without the crushing guilt that weighed on her soul. As the ceremony came to an end, she slipped away from the festivities and made her way to the river, the place where Kofi had once asked her to meet him. When she arrived, Kofi was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was a letter, tucked into a small stone at the river's edge. Abina opened it with trembling hands, recognizing the familiar handwriting. Abina, I waited for you by the river, but I see now that you are not coming. My heart is broken, but I understand. You belong to someone else, and I can never take that from you. Please know that I will always love you, even from afar. Yours, Kofi. Abina collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The love she had kept hidden for so long now had no hope. She had missed her chance to be with Kofi, and now, the letter was all she had left of him. Kofi left the village soon after, his heart heavy with the loss of the love that could never be. He wandered from village to village, working as a laborer and never speaking of his past. His love for Abina was a painful memory, one he carried in silence, knowing it could never be realized. Years later, when Kofi had grown old and gray, he returned to the village, hoping to find peace. He visited the riverbank where he had once waited for Abina, now a quiet place of reflection. But the village had changed. Abina had married the merchant and lived a life of quiet contentment. She had never spoken of Kofi again, the love that never bloomed, a chapter closed in her heart. Kofi sat by the river, staring at the water, and whispered to the wind, Abina, wherever you are, know that I loved you, and I always will. As the sun set over the river, Kofi's heart found peace, knowing that his love, though unfulfilled, had been true.